When you close your eyes and imagine the moment of your death, what do you feel? Fear, emptiness, or perhaps curiosity? There's a question that has haunted humanity since the first conscious breath was drawn. What happens when everything ends? But what if I told you that death is not an end at all, but merely a doorway? A passage between rooms in an infinite mansion of consciousness? Raymond Moody spent his life studying this very threshold, this mysterious border between what we call life and what lies beyond. Through thousands of conversations with those who glimpsed the other side and returned, he discovered something profound. Death is not the opposite of life, but its continuation in another form. Like a caterpillar entering its cocoon, unaware, that wings await on the other side of darkness. Think about the last time you fell asleep. That gentle surrender of consciousness, that soft dissolving of the boundaries between waking and dreaming. Now imagine that same surrender, but deeper, more complete. This is what those who've touched death describe. Not an ending, but a transformation. Not darkness, but a different kind of light. We live our lives as if we're permanent fixtures in a temporary world, when in truth, we are temporary visitors in a permanent universe. Every breath we take is both a small death and a small rebirth. Every sleep is a rehearsal for the greater journey, and every awakening whispers of resurrections yet to come. Moody's research revealed that those who return from death's door don't speak of emptiness or oblivion. Instead, they describe expansion, understanding, a love so profound it defies our earthly vocabulary. They talk of life reviews where every action ripples through eternity, where every kindness multiplies across dimensions we can barely imagine. They speak of beings of light, of reunions with loved ones, of knowledge that flows like music through consciousness itself. But here's what's even more fascinating. These experiences mirror the great transitions we face throughout our lives. Think about it. When you left childhood behind, didn't a part of you die so that another could be born? When you experienced your first profound loss, didn't you pass through a kind of death before emerging transformed? When you fell deeply in love, didn't your old self dissolve into something larger, something that included another soul within your own? These are the invisible cycles Moody speaks of, the constant dying and rebirth that happens within us every day. The job you lost that led to your true calling. The relationship that ended, making space for deeper love. The illness that taught you what really matters. Each of these is a small death, a miniature passage through that mysterious portal. Our ancestors understood this better than we do. They saw death not as an enemy to be conquered, but as a teacher to be embraced. In their wisdom, they recognized that consciousness doesn't end, it transforms. Like water becoming vapor, rising to form clouds, then falling as rain to nourish. New life, our essence cycles through forms we can hardly imagine. Moody tells us that the fear of death is really the fear of the unknown. But what if that unknown is actually a return to something profoundly familiar? What if, as countless near-death experiencers report, dying feels like coming home? What if all our earthly sorrows are just homesickness for a place we've temporarily forgotten? Consider the butterfly again. In its caterpillar form, it cannot conceive of flight. Its entire reality is bound to leaves and branches, to the horizontal world of crawling and eating. Yet within its cells lies the blueprint for wings. Within its being lies the potential for a completely different existence. The caterpillar doesn't die in the cocoon. It discovers what it was always meant to become. This is the gift of Moody's work, the understanding that we are all butterflies in waiting, that what we call death is simply the moment when our wings unfold, that every ending in our lives is practice for the ultimate transformation that awaits us all. The mystics have always known this. They speak of dying before you die, of letting go while you still breathe, of practicing the art of surrender in the midst of life. Because those who learn to die well, live well. Those who embrace the cycles of ending and beginning find themselves dancing rather than struggling with existence. Think about water for a moment. It flows as a river, crashes as a wave, drifts as a cloud, falls as rain. Yet through all these transformations, it remains essentially water. This is what Moody discovered about consciousness. It changes form but never truly disappears. Those who've glimpsed beyond the veil describe not annihilation, but metamorphosis, not extinction, but evolution. In our modern world, we've become strangers to death. We hide it away in hospitals, speak of it in whispers, treat it as the ultimate failure rather than the ultimate transition. But Moody's research brings us back to an ancient truth. Death is as natural as birth, as essential as breathing, as sacred as love itself. When we fear death, we fear our own nature. When we deny death, we deny half of life. The testimonies Moody collected paint a consistent picture. People speak of leaving their bodies, of floating above the scene, of moving through a tunnel toward a light of indescribable beauty. They describe a presence of pure love, a being of light that radiates acceptance beyond anything earthly. They experience their entire life in an instant, not as judgment but as understanding, seeing how every action created ripples through the fabric of existence. But here's what's truly remarkable. These experiences change people. They return with less fear, more compassion, a deeper sense of purpose. They no longer chase material success with the same fervor. Instead, they seek connection, meaning, service to others. It's as if they've glimpsed the true currency of existence and realized that love is the only wealth that transfers between worlds. Moody teaches us that consciousness is like an ocean. Our individual lives are waves that rise and fall, but the ocean itself is eternal. When a wave crashes on the shore, it doesn't cease to exist. It returns to its source, ready to rise again in new forms. This is the cycle of consciousness, the rhythm of existence itself. Consider how many deaths you've already experienced. The death of innocence when you first encountered cruelty. The death of illusion when truth shattered your beliefs. The death of ego when love asked you to become something larger than yourself. Each of these passages prepared you for the ultimate transition. Each taught you that letting go is not loss, but liberation. The fear of death often stems from the fear of judgment. We worry about facing some cosmic tribunal, being weighed and found wanting. But Moody's research suggests something far more beautiful. The life review is not about punishment, but understanding. It's seeing your life from every angle, feeling every emotion you've caused in others, comprehending the vast web of cause and effect you've woven through existence. Imagine experiencing every smile you've created, every tear you've dried, every moment of courage you've inspired in others, but also feeling every hurt you've caused, every opportunity for kindness you've missed. Not as condemnation, but as education. Not as shame, but as growth. This is the profound teaching tool of the life review. Perfect understanding leading to perfect compassion. Moody discovered that many who return from near-death experiences develop psychic abilities, heightened intuition, a deeper connection to the unseen dimensions of reality. It's as if touching that other realm awakens dormant capacities within us. Perhaps we all carry these abilities, waiting to be activated by our willingness to embrace the full spectrum of existence. The message from beyond is consistent. We are here to learn and to love. Everything else is secondary. The careers we build, the possessions we accumulate, the status we achieve, none of it crosses the threshold. Only the love we've given and received, the wisdom we've gained, the growth we've achieved. These are the treasures that transcend death. Think of life as a school and death as graduation. We come here to learn specific lessons, to develop certain qualities, to contribute to the grand tapestry of existence. When our curriculum is complete, we graduate to the next level. There's no failure in this school, only different rates of learning, different paths to the same destination. Moody's work reveals that dying is not a medical event, but a spiritual one. It's not about the failing of organs, but the liberation of essence. Those who work with the dying often report a common phenomenon. As the body weakens, something else seems to strengthen. A clarity emerges. Old grievances fall away. Love becomes the only language that matters. In those final days or hours, many people report seeing deceased loved ones who come to help with the transition. Skeptics dismiss these as hallucinations, but Moody asks us to consider, what if these visitations are real? What if death is not a solitary journey but a reunion? What if we're never alone in our greatest transitions? The dying often speak of seeing beautiful landscapes, hearing celestial music, feeling surrounded by love. They describe peace beyond understanding, joy beyond earthly pleasure. Some even postpone their death until after a significant event, a grandchild's birth, a child's wedding, one last Christmas with family. It's as if consciousness has more control over this transition than we imagine. Moody teaches us that grief, too, is a portal. When we lose someone we love, a part of us dies with them. But this death creates space for new understanding, deeper compassion, a more profound appreciation for the time we had. Grief cracks us open, allowing light to enter our deepest wounds. It teaches us that love transcends physical presence, that bonds of the heart are stronger than death itself. Many bereaved individuals report signs from their departed loved ones. A familiar song on the radio at just the right moment. A butterfly, landing nearby during a moment of sorrow, dreams so vivid they feel like visits. Moody doesn't dismiss these experiences. Instead, he suggests they might be glimpses of a greater reality where consciousness continues, where love finds ways to bridge the worlds. The ancient wisdom traditions speak of death as the great teacher, not because it ends our lessons, but because it puts them all in perspective. When we truly understand that our time here is limited, everything changes. Petty conflicts lose their power. Material pursuits reveal their emptiness. Love becomes urgent. Forgiveness becomes necessary. Presence becomes precious. Moody's research challenges us to live differently. If consciousness survives death, if love is the ultimate reality, if our actions ripple through eternity, how should we spend our days? Perhaps the answer is simpler than we think. With more kindness, more presence, more courage to love deeply despite the certainty of loss. Think about the last time you watched a sunset. Did you mourn because the day was ending? Or did you marvel at the beauty of the transition? Death is the ultimate sunset, painting the sky of existence with colors we can barely imagine. And just as surely as the sun rises again, consciousness continues its eternal journey. The fear of death is really the fear of life unlived. We're not afraid of non-existence. We're afraid we haven't existed enough. We worry that we've wasted our precious time, missed our true purpose, failed to love as deeply as we could have. But Moody's work reminds us, it's never too late to live fully, to love deeply, to embrace the sacredness of each moment. Our ancestors understood that death gives life its meaning. Without winter, we wouldn't cherish spring. Without night, we couldn't appreciate dawn. Without endings, beginnings would lose their magic. Death is not life's enemy, but its dance partner, leading us through the eternal rhythm of transformation. In many spiritual traditions, the moment of death is considered the most important moment of life. It's when all masks fall away, all pretenses dissolve, and we face the truth of what we are. Moody's work suggests this truth is not terrifying, but liberating. We are not our bodies, not our achievements, not our failures. We are consciousness itself, temporarily focused through a human lens. When Moody first began his research, he expected to find chaos, confusion, perhaps even terror in near-death experiences. Instead, he discovered order, meaning, and profound love. Person after person described the same elements: the tunnel, the light, the life review, the beings of light, the choice to return. This consistency across cultures, religions, and backgrounds suggests something remarkable. Death follows a pattern, a sacred geometry of transformation. The tunnel that so many describe might be consciousness itself focusing, preparing for a new mode of existence. Like a camera lens adjusting to capture a different spectrum of light, perhaps our awareness narrows momentarily before expanding into realms beyond our current perception. The light at the end isn't just illumination, it's described as alive, intelligent, loving beyond measure. Many speak of encountering a border or boundary during their near-death experience. A river, a fence, a line in the sand. Cross it, and there's no return to earthly life. This boundary represents the final letting go, the complete surrender to transformation. Those who come back describe standing at this threshold, understanding that crossing it means leaving behind everything familiar. Yet they also sense that what lies beyond is home in the deepest sense. The decision to return is often the hardest part. After experiencing such peace, such love, such understanding, why come back to a world of suffering and limitation? Many report being given a choice or being told their work isn't finished. They return, not because earthly life is preferable, but because they have promises to keep, lessons to learn, love to give. Moody noticed that those who return often struggle to find words for their experience. Our language, built for describing physical reality, fails when confronted with the infinite. They speak in metaphors, in poetry, in tears. How do you describe a love that includes everything? How do you explain knowledge that arrives all at once? How do you convey the feeling of being more alive than you've ever been while technically dead? The implications of Moody's findings ripple through every aspect of how we live. If death is a doorway, not a wall, then life becomes a preparation, not a race against time. Every interaction becomes practice for the ultimate review. Every choice becomes a brushstroke on an eternal canvas. Every moment of consciousness becomes sacred. Children who've had near-death experiences often display wisdom beyond their years. They speak of life purposes, of the importance of kindness, of seeing through material illusions. It's as if touching that other realm awakens an ancient knowing, a remembrance of why we're here. They lose their fear of death but gain a deeper reverence for life. Moody's work suggests that we might be living in a larger story than we imagine. Perhaps Earth is a school for souls, a place where consciousness comes to experience limitation, to learn through contrast, to discover love through the possibility of its absence. Maybe what we call death is simply graduation day, when we finally understand the curriculum we've been studying all along. The concept of reincarnation appears in many accounts, not as doctrine, but as understanding. Some describe choosing their next life, seeing the lessons it will bring, the growth it will enable. Others speak of soul groups, clusters of consciousness that journey together through various incarnations, playing different roles for each other's evolution. What if every person in your life is part of your soul's curriculum? What if your greatest challenges are actually your most requested lessons? What if the people who trigger you most are your most dedicated teachers? This perspective transforms everything. Conflict becomes opportunity, loss becomes teaching, pain becomes pathway to growth. Moody's research reveals that love is the thread connecting all worlds. It's the language of the life review, the energy of the light beings, the force that allows communication across the veil. Love isn't just an emotion, it's the fundamental frequency of existence, the carrier wave of consciousness itself. The paradox of death is that it teaches us how to live. Every person who returns from that threshold carries the same message. Love more, fear less, cherish each moment. They understand what philosophers have long suspected, that death is the ultimate teacher because it reveals what truly matters. When all illusions fall away, when all masks dissolve, only love remains. Moody discovered that many who glimpse the other side develop a profound sense of life purpose. They return knowing they have specific work to complete, particular lessons to learn, unique gifts to share. This sense of mission often overrides their previous fears and limitations. They become more authentic, more courageous, more committed to what truly matters. The life review experience suggests that every moment of our existence is recorded, not by some cosmic surveillance system, but in the very fabric of consciousness itself. Every thought, every feeling, every action creates ripples in the ocean of being. During the review, we experience these ripples from every perspective. Our own, those we've affected, even future generations touched by our choices. This understanding transforms how we view responsibility. We're not isolated individuals making private choices, but interconnected nodes in a vast web of consciousness. Every kindness multiplies across dimensions. Every cruelty echoes through eternity. Every moment of authentic love strengthens the entire fabric of existence. Many who return from death describe time differently. They speak of experiencing past, present, and future simultaneously, of understanding that linear time is just one way consciousness organizes experience. In that realm, all moments exist at once, all possibilities remain alive, all healing is available. This explains why some can revisit past traumas during their life review and finally find peace. Moody's work suggests that consciousness might be fundamental to the universe, not a byproduct of brain chemistry. If awareness survives bodily death, if it can exist independently of physical form, then perhaps consciousness itself is the ground of all being. Maybe we are not bodies having spiritual experiences, but eternal spirits having temporary human experiences. The consistent message from near-death experiences is that we vastly underestimate who we are. We identify with our small, separate selves, when we're actually part of an infinite consciousness exploring itself through countless forms. Death removes the filters that keep us feeling separate, revealing our true nature as drops in an ocean of awareness that has no beginning and no end. Many returnees describe meeting beings who feel familiar, like family members of the soul rather than the body. These connections transcend single lifetimes, suggesting we travel in soul groups, learning and growing together across multiple incarnations. The people we're most drawn to or challenged by might be our oldest companions in this cosmic journey. The fear of death often masks a deeper fear, the fear of life itself. When we're afraid to die, we're often afraid to fully live. But those who've touched death and returned embrace life with new intensity. They take more risks, express more love, waste less time on what doesn't matter. They understand that playing it safe is the greatest danger of all. Moody teaches us that preparing for death is really preparing for life. Every spiritual tradition has practices for conscious dying: meditation, prayer, contemplation of impermanence. These aren't morbid exercises, but training in the art of letting go. The more we practice releasing our grip on life, the more fully we can embrace it. The message is clear. We are all going to cross that threshold someday. The question isn't whether we'll die, but whether we'll have truly lived. Will we reach that moment with regrets or with gratitude? Will we fear the unknown or trust the process that has guided us all along? Will we cling to the familiar or surrender to transformation? Every sunset reminds us that endings can be beautiful. Every dawn proves that what seems to end only changes form. Every breath is practice for the final exhalation. And in that last letting go, say those who've glimpsed beyond, we don't lose ourselves. We finally become who we've always been. Moody's gift to us is not the promise of immortality, but the invitation to mortality, to live with such presence, such purpose, such love, that when death comes, we greet it not as an enemy, but as the next great adventure in an eternal journey. For in the end, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience, but spiritual beings having a human experience. And death? Death is simply graduation day.